Epstein is one of the oldest engineering architecture design firms in the country, and they're celebrating their 100th anniversary with this publication, The Epstein Story, the first 100 years. And we're going to talk about Epstein today, not only in the first 100 years, but the next 100 years with Ed Curley, who's the Director of Architecture and Interiors at Epstein, and Darrin McCormies, Director of Industrial Services. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
You know, the firm's been around. Was started by Abraham Epstein 100 and something years ago now, and his two sons, Raymond and Sidney, were heavily involved. Really an innovative firm. But I think Epstein became known in the course of its 100 years and is still known for manufacturing facilities, food related food processing and packaging, and aviation. Let's talk about some of those things. Some of the early manufacturing facilities. I mean, Epstein goes back to early TV manufacture and so forth. Tell us about some of the manufacturing things and what that says about where the firm is today.
Sure, I'll take that, Rob. I'm the director of our industrial services, and really we got our foundation in 1921 when Abraham Epstein started his office in the back of the yards, the stock yards, the Chicago manufacturing district.
Right.
Our foundation was an industrial environment, and we've grown as the industrial footprint has grown and our company has grown. So we've been blessed to have projects that range across a variety of manufacturing types. We continue to be known for that.
What is the key to manufacturing facilities today, based on that experience? What's new in this sector?
So in terms of a manufacturing facility, first and foremost, it's around a process. So every client we've ever had has a process that they go through to convert some raw material into some finished product. And the efficiency and layout, efficiency and flow, how we move materials through the individual processes, how we bring people to those, how we manage the environment in terms of temperature, air quality. And I'll say increasingly important today is the architectural design and aesthetics of the employee space. So the cafeteria, the locker room, and how it looks from the outside.
Yeah, Ed, talk about that. How do you you've got a plant, and maybe it's hot in there, and how do you make it and make it a pleasant or at least reasonable environment for workers in a manufacturing and in food facilities as well?
Certainly. Well, it is a place of work, and so we need people there at the plant to run all these processes and to make sure that operations are going smoothly. And these employees want to have pride in the place that they work, so we take great pride in designing nice spaces, relaxing recreational welfare areas, cafeterias, office space for those that are maybe on the corporate side, but also safe transitions from outside into the plant and around the plant. All of that takes careful architectural planning, and we work very closely with our engineers to make sure that those spaces are suitable for their welfare.
Food processing, food-related construction, design and construction is really big with Epstein. I know you have many clients, Aramark and clients like that, going back as far as A&P. We've got an old A&P ad here praising their processing plant from probably the 50s, I would guess. And let's not forget Vienna sausage, the home of the Chicago hot dog.
Right.
No ketchup. So you got the Vienna hot. I mean, again, sometimes not a very pleasant place. Ed, how do you make that a food processing facility and packaging? How does that become a good work environment?
Ed, you want to take that?
Well, there is the process has to happen, and not many folks fully understand how the sausage gets made, figuratively and literally. So really making it a safe environment is primary for us as designers, making sure that the environment around them, that the lighting is adequate, that signage is adequate, and really that we provide the space necessary for all of that processing to occur smoothly, efficiently, but of primary importance, safely.
Yeah, safety is big. Okay, let's turn to aviation.
Let me add.
Sorry, go ahead, Darrin.
Rob, in terms of safety, and Ed is absolutely right. The safety of the employees are paramount, and there's a great amount of effort that goes into that on the architecture and engineering side. The other part of that for food processing facilities is the food safety, making food that is safe to consume. And there are a tremendous amount of details in terms of the quality of the air, the cleanability of the facility, the accessibility of the equipment, eliminating standing water. We go to tremendous efforts to make sure the facility is designed both from a safety perspective of employees as well as being able to manufacture the food and keep that in a safe and healthy and state.
Yeah, absolutely. And consumers depend on you to design the facilities right so that the end product is we don't get recall notices over the airwaves. Speaking of airwaves, aviation is another core business of Epstein and has been since going back to Midway Airport in the 50s and 60s, I guess, and the original airport in Chicago, and then the United Airlines terminal at Helmut Jahn's terminal, the so-called diner. The pilots call it the diner, coming into the diner. I always loved the underground passage between the two parts of the terminal. I used to take my son there at night, and we'd go through the neon lights and so forth. A beautiful place. But let's talk about aviation. What's crucial in board the terminal piece of aviation? Ed, what are some of the pieces of that?
Well, security is obviously an important factor, but also when people are traveling, they are, it's an exciting event, especially air travel. So it could be people arriving to a new city or people departing for a new city. And so the spaces that people interact with in airports need to kind of build upon that environment. And we do this both on the land side before going through the TSA secure checkpoints, but also on the air side, making sure that we provide adequate space in areas, clear signage, obviously, but also welcoming spaces, areas that bring opportunity for economic endeavors, commercial activity, but really trying to accentuate that experience of air travel. And all of that is in play, whether it's the architectural design or the engineering that goes into that.
Can I issue a complaint? I think the international signage at both airports is terrible.
Yeah.
There's no language signage, and something needs to be done about that. O'Hare International, Midway has international flights, and let's get with it.
I think you keyed in on something, that how important wayfinding is in these spaces. People sometimes are running to the gate or running to the car, as it may be, and adequate wayfinding is of crucial importance.
Right. Okay. And another strong area that's not that's more amorphous is cultural and institutional facilities, and certainly Epstein has done some beautiful ones. Some very interesting ones, including the Federal Center, going back to the 60s. Some architect, what was the guy's name? Mies something or other, that worked on that with Richard J. Daley, the first Richard Daley as mayor in our city. Great example of mid-century glass and steel, right? I mean, that's perfect. The Harold Washington Library, not my favorite. Sorry, Tom Beebe, but no, postmodernism's got to go with that. But tell us about the cultural stuff. And here is my favorite: your recent Riverview Bridge. Beautiful, beautiful, connecting about a mile and a half along the Chicago River.
Right.
People who listen to our broadcast know that I've been involved with Friends of the Chicago River, and this is the kind of thing bringing the river back into usage. So talk about some of these cultural things that we're seeing. Darrin, even though you're on the industrial side, what's you're going to defer to Ed? Fine, go ahead.
Well, we take great pride in the civic projects, especially those here in Chicago. As you mentioned at the start, Rob, we turned 100 years old last year. And over those decades, we've been a part of some really exciting projects. We talked a little bit about O'Hare, Midway, but also the Midway revitalization, McCormick Place expansions,
Right.
Along the river. It's, we're hometown proud. And so being a part of those important civic developments here in Chicago has been a great joy for Epstein over all these years.
Yeah. Going back to even the Borg Warner building early in the city's in the mid-century history. And then Epstein was kind of an early leader in international practice, wasn't it? I mean, there was this connection to Poland, and you have offices in Eastern Europe,
Romania, Warsaw, Poland, and also on the East Coast here in the U.S. in New York City.
In New York, yeah, just some great work internationally. One thing I wanted to get at that I think would be very helpful to our audience is the company has an ESOP that was established, an employee stock ownership plan. It goes back to, I think, 2003. Does that sound about right? Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And AEC firms struggle with this problem of ownership and so forth. How has the ESOP worked out, and what advice what has been your experience with it in terms, particularly, does it help with retention or recruitment?
We certainly hype that when we talk to prospective employees and show the benefit of being a member of an ESOP. I think it creates a persona of our employees that we're all owners of the company. We're 100% employee owned. And I do think that helps in retention at some level. It is a benefit that most companies can't offer. And I was here when Sid Epstein and Raymond Epstein decided to convert from closely held ownership of the company. There was a small number of shareholders, and it was their way to transition ownership from a closely held company by the Epsteins and a few others to transition without selling the company, quite honestly. ESOP was formed, it was leveraged, and over the next dozen years, 100% of the company was purchased by the ESOP from the shareholders, and we're 100% distributed. So it is a way for smaller companies to transition ownership when that ownership is ready to move on, as Sid and Raymond were. He kept the company intact, and quite honestly, I think the Epsteins were quite proud and kept their legacy intact.
That too, that we make a grand event of our annual stock price announcement, and it's a great opportunity to remind all of us, all of our employees, that all the hard work we do throughout the year contributes to that raising stock price.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. Let's see, Darrin, how long have you been with Epstein?
28 years.
Have you learned anything that you want to pass on to our audience? And Ed, you're going to be the next victim.
And I'll say, quite honestly, I've learned so much from so many of the people I've worked with, both bosses as well as employees. But I'll touch on it from a client perspective. I mean, we are, quite honestly, we are stewards of our clients' vision and legacies. We work with them to help them advance, whether it's a cultural project, whether it's an industrial project. At the end, we are of service to our clients, and I try to always remember that in everything I do and pass that on to our younger staff.
Client service. Okay, Ed, what have you learned?
Well, I've learned that you have to always continue to try to develop, to become a better firm, to be a better company. when it comes to manufacturing, I think the building sector is 75% of electricity usage in the US and somewhere around 40% of all energy usage. So we need to strive to make sure our buildings are not only just carbon neutral, but become climate positive. That's going to be important to the future of our industry, as well as becoming as an inclusive of an industry as possible and really expanding on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think together with that and our understanding of the environment, we'll continue to make great improvements as a building industry.
Great. All right. Well, I've been having a very informative discussion with Darrin McCormies, the Director of Industrial Services, and Ed Curley, AIA, Director of Architecture and Interiors at Epstein, having just celebrated the firm's 100th anniversary last year and looking forward to another century of progress. Hey, that's a good Chicago term, isn't it? All right. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you, Rob.